Robin Hood and Little John, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Bonnie and Clyde. And now, meet the most lovable bad guys in the business.
M.L. Elric.
And
Shawn Windsor, the soul of Detroit.
They're the perfect team.
You want to bet I can get to you before you can get to the gun?
One is polished.
First we ask questions, then we drown him.
Polite.
Bring him up.
And persuasive.
Who hired you to hit Continental?
I didn't hit Continental.
Drown him.
The other is cool, capable, and crazy.
Hold on, baby. Daddy's going to take you on a cosmic ride.
One has a way with words.
You are the true genius of the world. Who's going to argue with you?
The other has a way with wheels. They both have a way with women.
Feel like doing some work?
Why not? Hi. Would you like something else over here?
I certainly would.
When they get together, everything starts coming apart.
You asked her to ride your questions around my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now,
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric, and Mark, another fantastic piece of production. And if you're one of our Patreon subscribers for just $5 a month, you actually saw it. But I'm just confused. Which one of those is me? Because they both seem to describe me.
No, you were Roger Moore.
Oh, thank you very much.
Shawn, you were Stacy Keach.
Well, I was going to say this about Roger Moore, but now it's going to sound like an insult to Mike, and I didn't mean it because I wasn't thinking Roger Moore was Mike. But Roger Moore is stiff. He's always been stiff, and I don't mean stiff in that way. I mean, he's wooden. Well, I guess I don't mean wooden that way either, but he's erect. No, what am I saying here?
What are you saying?
He's making sexual allusions nobody else notices.
Yeah, maybe it would be better if you said less.
No, but when he took over for Sean Connery, you know, the Bond series tightened up in a way that wasn't pleasant.
Okay, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have any range. How about that? Let's break it down to acting.
He wasn't that bad of a Bond.
No, he was a decent presence. He was a decent screen presence, you know, in the Tory side of the Brit divide and all that. But
when James Bond has larger breasts than the Bond women, it's time for a new Bond, and that's when Roger Moore got to Freudian slip.
No,
when Roger Moore got to a point
I have
where
large breasts. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I'm too erect to even see you. I just have this giant priapism that's blocking my view.
I do have a bro on underneath this hoodie.
A girdle, a man girdle,
a man girdle. There we go.
Sorry, Eli. Are you glad you're joining us today? It's Eli's like, shit, I could be golfing.
Well, I was on with the Drew and Mike show, and they're talking about dick pics, and now we're into this. It's like, can we ever get onto any topics besides sexual illusion?
Well, no, we're just making fun of our own bodies. I mean, I wear mine so I don't tip over when I'm walking.
Oh, stop it.
Wow. Well, I don't traffic in that because I think Le'Veon Bell has the former Spartan porn market cornered right now with his OnlyFans, which is that why he gave up football so he could sell pictures of himself getting blown? I mean,
it's the exact opposite. It's because he gave up football. Now he's got to have pictures of himself getting blown.
Jeez,
I think that might be the most bizarre post athlete career move, like an actual career. I mean, OJ murdering somebody's not a good post career move, but as far as a job, it's Le'Veon Bell doing OnlyFans, right?
Well, how about Dhani Jones turning into a travel guide going all over the world? And
yeah, but that
was sort of interesting.
That's not OnlyFans.
No, I know, but it was very different.
It was a tad more intellectual.
Yeah, there was casino greeter. Now there's porn star for a post.
There you go. Wow, that's a pretty apt comparison.
Yeah, it's from Willie Mays to Will he amaze with his sexual prowess.
God's sake.
We're way off. We're way off track. This is normally where I would mention the sponsor names, but I think for their sake we'll put a little air between what we just talked about and what we're going to talk about. But we are joined today by Eli Zaret because not only have there been a lot of really big sporting events just within the last 48 hours, within the last 72 hours. The Red Wings win in overtime against Toronto. Then
Stay
they win
alive.
in overtime against Montreal, and I was there last night. That was the closest I've been to playoff hockey, and I would love to go to a hockey game where the outcome is decided early. I watched all those Spartans Big Ten championship games that went into the last second or overtime. Now the Red Wings, they can't beat anybody by more than a goal, and it has to be an extra time. And there's a story here that Eli probably remembers reading when he was growing up in New York that we want to talk about. A guy named Fritz Peterson has passed away. Now, you probably don't know him unless you're a hardcore Yankees fan or really into Cleveland Indians trivia. But he was a very talented left-hander, ended up career record like 133 and 131, so kind of a break even, but he threw more innings than most Yankees pitchers, and they've had a lot of great pitchers in their storied history. But he's most remembered because he and a fellow pitcher on the Yankees traded families during spring training in 1973, and even in the groovy 70s, that was pretty scandalous. So we're going to catch up with Eli on that, who I think Eli is the one who introduced them to each other, right?
You say when you were growing up, I was already an adult when that happened in 1973. But that was, Do you want to talk about it now, or are you still previewing the show? Or are you still?
No, I think it's probably safe for me to mention who got us here today, and that's of course Dr. Yaldo, who is a longtime friend of Eli Zaret. Eli's a patient. Eli's had many eye procedures done. It's why he can see clearly. Now the Shawn is gone. And Mark and I have both had LASIK done, which has given us better than perfect vision. So we highly recommend that you get LASIK done. And if you do it, you talk to Dr. Yaldo. And a little while later, Eli will tell us the latest advancements in medicine that Dr. Yaldo is practicing. We're also here because Luke Nowacki and Pinnacle Wealth Strategies will help you come up with a plan so that when you're ready to retire, your money is ready for you. It'll be waiting for you. And rather than you worrying about it, I think the stock market, if you've been watching for the past week, don't watch it. Let Luke and Zach and their team take care of that. And come play Detroit. Free Press softball team starts this Wednesday at Belle Isle. If you want to get in the game, check out Come to Play Detroit. We'll tell you not only how to get involved, but how to save some dough. And our most important sponsor, of course, is you. Those of you who are Patreon subscribers who have given as little as $5 a month, you get an early version of the show. You get it before anybody else. You don't get the annoying insertion ads. You do get to watch the show. You get the video version of the show. And there's all kinds of great perks. We'll tell you about them and how to avail yourself of those opportunities after we're done talking to our friend Eli and maybe having a few yucks, although that's always very subjective. So Eli, great to have you. You're back in Detroit just in time for baseball, and what are you making of the end of the Tigers season? The end of the well, I don't know if they don't hit, it's over. The end of the Wings season, the end of the Pistons season, and the Tigers kind of, I don't know, starting strong, what are they doing?
And by the way, you're forgetting quickly. You're forgetting the biggest sports moment of the last couple of weeks.
Michigan Panthers,
the WNBA draft.
Oh yeah. I had that woman going in the third.
That woman.
Oh my goodness.
By the way, did they televise the draft, or was it just
Eli? They did, and you know what? I watched
Shawn
more
was
than I ever
streaming
thought I would have.
No, that's my point. I mean, it was all over all the sports news websites. It was. I've never seen anything like it with the draft.
I know Caitlin Clark, somebody named Juju, and the woman who went to Detroit Edison. That's it.
Let's just say this: the draft is done a lot differently than the men's. There's a lot more crying the women's draft. Just saying, it's a fact.
Damn.
Did you watch it, Shawn?
No, I followed it. I followed it online on my phone.
Did anybody watch it and say, "Wow, some of those dads are good looking"?
like we do with the NFL moms.
Jay Nivey's mom is beautiful. I remember saying, "Jay Nivey, come on down."
She's coach too. Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd see that day, Eli? Televised WNBA draft and all the interest?
No, I listen. I go so far back; it's embarrassing sometimes. And I was talking on the show the other day with Drew, the Drew and Mike show, that I remember when the NFL draft was done in a hotel ballroom somewhere in New York City, and you'd read it in the paper the next day to see who your team drafted. There was no television of it. There was no radio of it. There was no immediate reporting of it. It was just, you maybe heard about it late that night, I don't know, or the next day. And now, look where we have the draft. We have hundreds of thousands of people jamming the streets, parties, bands, rock concerts, a 24/7 television previews. In fact, I was saying, I get back into town on March 31st. I turn on the ticket, haven't listened to the ticket in 3 months. What are they talking about? Another fucking mock draft. I go, really? And so it's been wall-to-wall mock, which is the most senseless pre-event hype of all. Yet geeks can't get enough of it. So
it's nice to hear you cuss, for one. But before you get to our local teams, can I swear, whatever, drop an F-bomb. Before you get to our local teams, Eli, can you not explain, but just give us your thoughts on the men's and women's NCAA championships? We're just, a little over a week ago, where the women outdrew the men for the first time in the history of the sport.
Well, there's two reasons. One is Caitlin Clark, obviously. There's three reasons. Caitlin Clark, and also ESPN's, over the years, over the decades, normalization, can I say, or exposure for women's sports that otherwise didn't exist in the past. And she's a unicorn. She's a once in a lifetime player. She's white. She's amazing. She plays a game that no woman has really played, I don't think, in the past, using both hands, shooting with both hands, incredible speed, vision, great assist person too. But I think that is temporal. It's a bump, but I think she's going to disappear now. If you were to ask people when's the WNBA season, few people would even know that it's May through September. Nobody even knows when the WNBA season is, I think, for the most part. But she is unique, and that's why they outdrew the men, I think, by 5 million. The men were 14.7 million, then it peaked at about 18, and the women were 18, and it peaked at 24.
Isn't that something?
Which is crazy. It's amazing. But it's because of her.
Well, it's because of her. I want to say that the time the games were played too matters. I mean, a 3:00 game
on a Sunday afternoon
versus
it was her and Iowa also going up against a team that, having undefeated South Carolina and Dawn Staley helped some too, right? And they played the year before, so there are these little rivalries brewing with Caitlin Clark. Maybe not UConn, but with LSU and Kim Mulkey, and it was just. By the week, the numbers kept going.
I think women's college basketball also benefits from the tournament being played the same time as the men, because there's so much crossover conversation.
What the hell is going on here?
What?
The Red Wings are playing for their life, and Shawn has already turned this into a sports show about women's basketball.
But that's
what is going on here?
This
is insane.
It's a good question, and we're not done. And you can just please back off until we've exhausted this topic. The other thing that's very interesting about it is, in the past, nobody watched this tournament because the number one seeds win all the time. There isn't the equality in women's basketball you have in men's basketball. The men are filled with upsets. You got 14s like Oakland U beating 3 seeds, but the women, it pretty much follows a script, because the players are not so evenly distributed as they are in the men's. Also in the men's, everybody is moving from team to team all the time, so there's no continuity. There's no 4-year players, or very, very few. So the women had a unique situation this year. I don't think it's a bump that will have some type of residue, but it doesn't show some type of cultural shift in men's and women's basketball.
No.
College basketball.
All right. Go ahead, Emma.
Go ahead, Mike. Let's
get back to the men.
Let's go back to
let's talk about all the dudes you want to talk about.
Yeah, let's go back to the one team in the area that doesn't really draw from the whole area. But go ahead. It's true. I'm just stating fact.
Wait, what's the fact?
The Red Wings are not popular in all parts.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. This is an Iowa Hawkeyes women's basketball town. Always has been.
No, that's a national story, but you're going to talk about half of a local story.
That's going to be over tonight.
Did anybody else see that? Did anybody else see that Glorious Women of Wrestling documentary, or that show that was on?
Oh yeah, Glow. I saw some of it. It was pretty funny.
Glow.
That was on years ago.
No, Glow was great. With Mark Marone.
I'm just trying to get in with the zeitgeist.
Why do you hate women?
I love women. I just
from a distance.
Other than
as long as they stay in their lane.
Yeah.
Or drive the lane, I guess, is okay too, right?
Sure.
With their blinker on. I don't know. I mean, listen, I coach women's sports.
Wait a second. You liked new wave
both
music.
of my daughters played hockey, softball, track, you name
That
it.
was so you could keep an eye on them.
No.
Because any love of women.
I just don't get a sense that there are people in Detroit who are saying, I didn't get enough about women's college basketball last week from Shawn. Let's start with it.
You like new wave music, right? You're supposed to be progressive, forward thinking. So this is interesting.
But new wave music is at the back of the show.
Here.
This isn't the Caitlin Clark.
The
By the way,
wait a minute. It is. It's about the GOAT. There aren't too many GOATs in the world. And when you have one like Caitlin Clark, people want to be a part of it. They spend thousands of dollars to get a ticket so I can say, I was there when Caitlin Clark. Same thing with, why was Tiger Woods, as he limped around Augusta on camera incessantly as his score went up into the double figures over par? Because he's the GOAT. People want to see him. He has a level of fame that supersedes all others. And that's the Caitlin Clark factor that will end soon as she disappears into the WNBA.
And Mike won't have to worry anymore, Eli, about women on his television screen unless they're in an apron in the front of the sink.
Or naked, yeah.
I think the reason why people watch Tiger Woods is they want to make sure he's not on the road so that's safe to drive wherever he is. Because this he's not just killing drives, he's killing guardrails and whatever shrubs are at the bottom of a cliff.
I resisted the Caitlin Clark phenomenon for a long time because honestly, who cares? But she is really good. And here's the other thing. She's incredibly marketable. You already see her in 5 commercials.
Okay.
You are not going to see the end of this.
You know what? So Caitlin Clark is fantastic. Now, again, this is not a national sports show. So I thought maybe national sports stories could take a step to the side for some local stuff. But Caitlin Clark, and again, fantastic, doing a lot for everybody. I don't want to be the one guy who finds the one flaw in her, but worst actress.
Oh yeah, terrible.
Ever.
Terrible actress.
Terrible in the commercials. Horrible on Saturday Night Live, even though her bit was really, really funny. But
that was kind of the point,
she is
though, right?
wooden. Somebody needs to take her and say, okay.
More so than Roger Moore?
A little Roger Moore is not even the GOAT James Bond. That's Sean Connery. And then I think Roger Moore is probably 4th in my James Bond.
I'm sorry. I came in today and ready prepared to go right away. I'm fucking up the show.
No, I thought it was a good point.
I don't
because that draft was last night. I bet you more people watched that than you even know. Well, now I did watch the Wings beforehand.
Yeah, well, here's a transition. Who has more hits this season, Caitlin Clark or Parker Meadows?
He gets on base. He runs fly balls down.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
He made a nice catch yesterday. Yeah.
Can you hear the snooze buttons out there in our listenership?
Mike has now successfully segued to baseball. It's so very smooth. Well done.
Oh yeah, you can hear the sound of the head hitting the pillow out in our audience.
He's so proud of himself.
He just feel his ratings just nosediving.
You can actually feel that vibe. Sport. It's just.
I think the question for the Tigers. I think the Tigers, like the Red Wings, are a very good average team. The Red Wings are an average team. They're actually 40-41 on the season, but the excitement is unparalleled because they haven't made the playoffs in 7 or 8 years. As for the Tigers, they are moving towards mediocrity and maybe, I think, beyond mediocrity. I had the feeling they were being undersold by the national media, picking them like for the middle of the Central. I thought they showed enough improvement last year, and their pitching is good. There's no aces except for potentially Skubal. There's no all-stars on the Tiger. There's no guy that you build around like when they had Cabrera, but they have a lot of young players that if they continue to develop, and if one of them, whether it's Riley Green or Torkelson, can become a bona fide slugger to protect some of the other hitters, the offense could improve. But right now they're offensively challenged, and yet they're 9-6. No, they're 9-7 because they lost last night. So they have some challenges on offense. They got a great manager. And let's see. The next big problem is Javier Baez, who is their only really highly paid player, who seems to be in 3 years now a bust. But they're still hopeful that he becomes something more than just a guy that flails at the low outside pitching and can't help himself. He's like an addict. that just can't lay off the blow or can't lay off the booze. He can't lay off the outside pitch and the dirt, even though he knows he shouldn't do it, but he's compelled to swing, and it could cost him his career, or at least his opportunity to resurrect being a star here in Detroit.
Is there a chance that Dr. Yaldo has a procedure that can help this guy, because he just doesn't seem to see it coming in? There was a good column about Mark Canna the other day about how he goes up there and he just won't go after junk. He makes the pitcher throw him strikes. I mean, this must have occurred to some of these other guys. It was one of the outstanding Free Press columnists.
Jeff?
Oh, I thought you wrote it, Shawn.
No.
Shawn, didn't you write that Tarik Skubal blew his shot at a Cy Young after that first start? Was that you?
Quite the contrary.
Eli, he knows damn well that was Carlos Menard.
Oh,
he wrote the response to that column.
Can we get back to hockey for a second, though, Eli? You said the wings
Carlos
are 40.
also not a big Caitlin Clark fan.
Yeah, no. You wrote that. No, he's like y'all. He thinks it's a one-off, and no woman's ever going to be popular
Oh, God,
again.
why did I go
No,
there?
wait a second.
no,
Wait a
Tarik
second.
Skubal, terrible, awful.
Say that. Do you really think it's all hype? Listen, I'm very sensitive to hype.
Oh, yeah.
I hate it. It drives me crazy. And the Caitlin Clark thing is a lot of hype, but it will fade. Understandably so.
She shot the ball like Curry. She's the first player on that side. And I'm going to say on that side for Mike, because he likes to,
she's
keeps
really good.
Don't pass your chauvinism off on me there.
No, she was hitting logo
Simon
threes.
Legree.
That's why people tuned in, right? The ball handling and the vision was all great, but they're amazing players. There are a lot of
Le'Veon
them.
Bell is doing some ball.
Juju
handling.
Watkins, who plays for USC, and
She's got some moves.
she's
impressive.
incredible to watch. But Caitlin Clark gets the deep threes, and people love that.
Well, you know what else, though? I'm going to say it, but Caitlin Clark's white. And that will bring a lot of eyeballs to it. That will make her more marketable. It's just, I think it's just a fact.
Yeah, it's part of the. Listen, we got Ice Cube and the other rapper, Lil Durk. I never heard of Lil Durk offering her $5 and $10 million. It's all hype. There's no way she can play with men. There was the guy in CBS Sports saying she could play in the NBA. That's stupid to say that. I know you want a headline or get your name on. She would get every shot blocked in the NBA. Yeah. In fact, I'll ask you this question: those that glorify Caitlin Clark beyond being a very good women's player, great woman player, how about the kid for Oakland U? What's his name? Golke. Okay, so he's a great 3-point shooter. Now, if you're an NBA franchise, you got to pick one or the other. You're going to take Jack Golke, who no one would ever draft, great 3-point shooter who's 6'3", strong as enough, or would you take Caitlin Clark, who's 5'11", weighs 160 pounds, and shoots the 3-pointers from her chest instead of in front of her over her head? She would last not a second playing with men in any league.
Wait, why are we talking about her playing in the NBA?
Because somebody mentioned that the other day in a column that she could play in the NBA.
Is that Carlos again?
No, this guy Walker said it. Who's a former coach, college coach, said it on one of the men's pregame shows that she could play in the NBA. And so he made headlines doing that, but it's
a whole different ball. I mean,
it's unfair to her. It's unfair to her to talk about that shit too.
But I do think Mark is onto something here, and I can't believe I somehow brought us back to this topic.
Because she's white.
This is
Brianna Stewart's white. Diana Taurasi's white.
No, but Angel Reese
Paige Buckers is white.
Drop dead gorgeous, and she's not getting the attention and the endorsements that Caitlin Clark isn't.
Her game is not the same.
Some of it's because she's white.
America
is still.
Iowa had if Caitlin Clark were black and played at Iowa.
I can't believe I'm arguing with Shawn that America's racist.
No, of course it is, but I'm just saying.
Okay, well, now we agree. Okay,
let him finish that. Let him go ahead.
It's the style and the beauty of her game. There's never been anybody that shoots like that off the dribble. It's the same reason Curry is beloved. It's the exact same thing.
I just think she is more marketable because she's a short white woman. She's not a Rebecca Lobo.
Yeah,
I am. You did mention Paige Buckers, who was, I think, really pretty, has a good game too. But you know what? The difference between those two is there's something about Iowa, Midwest, Big Ten.
It's not that. It's the game. It is the style.
She
think it's a
makes
Hoosiers
shots
thing,
from
Mark?
40 feet away.
Exactly. That's it.
So does
That's
Beckers.
all this is.
She does things.
That's
She
all
has
this is.
changed the parameters of the court.
That's all it is. It's that
Exactly.
simple.
It's
It's
not
really
all-
that.
it's not-
It's
Shawn?
exactly that's all.
Shawn
it
is
all-
pigeonholing her? I think
No,
she's...
there's
Mark,
nobody
Mark,
else.
you're right. The fact that she's let's not discuss the fact that she's white certainly makes a difference. Of course.
Of course. Corporate America loves that.
But listen, did we back off Michael Jordan because he was black, or could we not take our eyes off the screen?
Sure.
So it's
Yeah.
the same thing Sean's talking about.
Yeah, no,
Sean, we're
Michael-
talking a bunch
both
of
are true.
non-sports guys here, and it's become very difficult for both of us. I can tell on this show.
Michael
it's-
Jordan
it's-
has his silhouette on football uniforms. That's how ubiquitous he is and how ridiculous
Because
he
of
is.
how beautiful it was. The experience of watching him was new, and it was beautiful. It was thrilling to watch. And
Dr.
He
J
did, he
was
did
beautiful
things
to
nobody
watch.
else did.
no, Dr. J, yeah, for what he did, but Dr. J didn't really go left, and he didn't really have a jump shot, and he didn't.
And the league wasn't the same.
No,
back
he
then.
soared, but he didn't contort, and there's a difference.
Are you saying Caitlin Clark could take Dr. J?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Back to your wings real quick, Eli. You said they were 40 and 41. Can we change hockey? I'm so sick of ties.
Loser
I guess there are no
points, yeah.
ties anymore. We don't need points. If you go to overtime, even if you win in a shootout, you win the fucking game. That's it.
Right.
I kind of agree. Yeah, this whole
I'm sick of it.
I was looking at all the tiebreakers, and it's regulation wins, then it's overtime wins, and it's shootouts.
Because Eli said they're 40 and 41, but they're not really a below 500 team. They're slightly above 500. I mean, who knows how many they win in overtime? I guess we could look and
If
see.
they had Caitlin Clark,
Well, how about just going back to when it was wins, losses, and ties?
that was great.
Yeah.
Why do we need
Soccer,
ties?
Soccer does it.
Why do you need ties, though? You win in a shootout, you win. That's part of it. We don't say they're ties in the World Cup. You go to a shootout and you advance if you win.
Yeah, but this isn't the playoffs. This isn't the finals. This is regular season.
Oh, we don't need the
Now,
ties.
but
Now we're talking about overall overarching NHL issues as opposed to what the Wings have done, which is make sneaking into the playoffs extremely exciting with the overtime wins the last two games with comebacks, and to watch the crowd last night after that overtime goal by Lucas Raymond on a beautiful pass from Dylan Larkin.
Yeah,
it's like. People are just euphoric, and yet think of it. It's a chance to sneak into the playoffs and lose in the first round, most likely. But the bigger question is, it seems like it's almost binary. If they don't make the playoffs, if either Washington wins tonight or the Wings don't win in Montreal, they fall flat for yet another season. You can hear the talk about firing the coach. Is Steve Yzerman not doing a bad job? Should they be farther along after 5 years? But if they make it into the playoffs, now there's this euphoric bump. Well, maybe we're really on the right track. So it seems like it shouldn't be this binary to say if they get the extra point and get in, okay, we're on our way, and if they don't, we really suck. Let's break up the team.
Now
But
you're
fans
talking Mike's
work that
world.
way. Fans take short-term results and make long-term prognostications, and that's always the way.
Mike loves
always
the
been and will be.
Mike loves the binary world, so let's get into that.
I also like the non-binary, Shawn.
Speaking of binary, can we step back to the original topic before we get to the
Yeah, we
Tigers
can.
again?
I still can't believe I said Paige Beckers, excuse me, and Mark said, "Oh yeah, he knew exactly who she was." After listening for 5 years down in this basement, that Mark doesn't know anything or care anything about
I just
women's
watched her.
sports.
I watched her play Caitlin Clark.
ML Soul of Detroit is brought to you by Massengale, which is the choice that I use to try and keep myself hygienic.
Well, you're
promo
really
code Shawn.
going down that path, aren't
What?
you?
No, so I mean, what are we going to do? Start doing menopause ads? I mean, this has become a woman's sports show.
Okay, Cro-Magnon man. Let's.
I'm just saying, I feel like Michaela Corleone. Every time I try and get out, they pull me back in. It's just,
Well, that's kind of where you're stuck too. Is in the 20s.
It is kind of a big cultural topic. I
no, it
think we're
is.
all
But
pretty
we
much
talked
done with
about it last week. We start with this week. We have local teams that are doing exciting things. The Pistons are setting records. Every coach in Ann Arbor is drunk. I mean, what's going on? Can't we talk about that?
Drunk on national championships.
And apparently Muscatel, I mean, now Shoelaces is falling out of his friggin' front seat.
I love the compassion you can show.
What's going on? Well, at least he wasn't speeding with a loaded gun in his car. That's an improvement.
Are you done?
Mozzie Smith, what? No, I'm just saying there's local.
That one
there are
really
local
drives you nuts.
topics. This is a local show. We have an overwhelmingly local audience.
I don't think the Pistons really qualify as a topic.
No.
I'll be honest with you.
No,
I used to work for that team where I saw every minute of every game. I didn't watch, I don't think this year, an entire half. If you added up all the 3 or 4 minutes that I watched at a time.
Oh, I can tell you the only
and
time
you probably wanted to watch the other team.
The only time I watched that team was to see if they would set the loss record. Right? When were they finally going to win?
Sure. And so now we have this Gores, who's an absentee owner who claims to have loved basketball and played basketball. Like somebody we're going to talk about in a few minutes, he slept with his brother's wife, so that's an interesting trade that he made there. But he's not going to clean out the front office. He brings an agent in to help run the team. That doesn't work out. He brings this highly respected GM. That doesn't work out. He hires this coach who says he didn't want to coach this year. That doesn't work out. And he's not making any real changes. What the hell?
Well,
why not just tell season ticket holders to give up?
$80 million. But they have better players than what the results indicate. There are 4 or 5 guys that are pretty good. Ivy's a good player. This Jalen Duren is going to be a good center. Cade Cunningham is a good player. They have some decent players. Why? But it's a problem throughout the NBA. There's 4 or 5 teams. There's Portland. There's obviously the San Antonio, even with Wembanyama, still only won 15 or 16. So there's this lack of parity in the NBA that's kind of puzzling. But
well, if they can draft Caitlin Clark as Shawn recommends, I think they've got a shot because they really need that outside shooting. Shawn,
is that what I recommended?
Before the show. Now you said, well, if you say it during the show, I'm going to deny it. But we know it's true. Just like your Skubal thing. They were talking.
I almost called Eli Carlos. Sorry, Eli. Eli, did you see that? Our good buddy Carlos wrote that Tarik Skubal hurt his Cy Young chances a little bit after his second outing.
Are you kidding me?
He wrote that on the home opener. Yeah.
Speaking of Carlos, have you seen Carlos Pena doing any of the color commentary on the Tiger games?
No, how is it?
He's okay. The reason I bring him up is he came here in 2002.
He speaks Italian, by the way.
He came here in 2002, and he speaks so beautifully. He's a good-looking guy.
He's handsome as hell, yeah.
He has power. And I took him aside after I did an interview with him in 2002. I said, Carlos, we have never had an Hispanic star in this town that speaks as beautifully as you. And I think with a big Hispanic community, you could become a big star in this town like we've never had before. We had Aurelio Rodriguez, we had Aurelio Lopez, we had Willie Hernandez, but they were Hispanic guys that struggled with the language. You got it all made. Of course, he didn't make it here, so it's ironic. I see him come back, and he did have somewhat of a decent career after he left here. He hit he had many home runs, although he only had 232 as a career. But it's just funny. I remember that conversation and him kind of saying, "Well, we'll have to see how it goes." And he liked that concept that he could be something that we hadn't had here in the city, and of course it never happened. But hopefully he makes it as a broadcaster. I don't want to get into the Tiger broadcasters. I find it very frustrating in many ways.
I remember he spoke 4 or 5 languages. And one of them was Italian. I remember.
Yeah, he was like the Bison Dele of the Tigers,
Renaissance,
kind of an erudite guy.
Yeah.
I do have to say one thing about a Tiger broadcaster. I've never had a strong feeling one way or the other about Craig Monroe. Probably more than anything, kind of thought of him as a benign presence. But when we were doing the Killer Cares bartending event, there was a fan there who had like a D tattooed on her finger. And, all the athletes, people mob them, and then they want to talk to each other, and so it's hard to get their attention. And this was late in the evening, and this woman, I said, do you know Craig Monroe? I bet he'd like to see your tattoo. You're a big Tigers fan. She's like, yeah, I know him. I'd like to say hi. I'm like, okay. So I went to go see Craig. He was talking to people. He was very involved in the conversation. I said, hey, when you get a minute, can I introduce you to somebody? And to his credit, he met her, and he talked to her for quite a while. He seems, from that very limited exposure, to be a pretty decent guy. So I hope that he does well. And God rest Jim Price's soul, but it was time for a change in the box, in the booth. That was getting tough.
Yeah, Jim was a radio guy, and you're talking. Craig is basically a TV guy, and sure he's nice. He seems like a very good guy, but that's totally irrelevant to the type of job he does.
Oh, sure, yeah. But I mean, we try and get behind the scenes on this show, and that was a moment where I saw Craig Monroe, and I was like, "Wow, really impressive." Now on the flip side, there are a bunch of the Tigers doing one of these Killer Cares bartending things in July at Fifth Avenue several years ago, and there was the one guy. He was super fast. He was a center fielder, played at LSU. He hit the ball every once in a while. I can't remember what his name was. But he and that cast off from the Twins who'd play second base and shortstop and outfield, they were all behind the bar, and they were just getting loaded, and they were having a good time, and they were just mucking it up and mugging with all the cute chicks. And I'm just like, if I were you guys, I'd probably be watching some film or working out or doing something, because you're not going to make it on a team that doesn't completely suck. And it was like a frat house with those guys. Whereas with Simo, I thought he seemed like a decent guy.
You know, guys like Simo,
Jacoby, what's his nuts? That was his name.
Jones.
Jacoby Jones. Yeah. He just seemed like he was having a good old time. Like, well, you know, if you don't get better, you're going to be having a good old time.
Let loose every once in a while.
It might have been alcohol induced, but you know.
Yeah. Well, they just had a game. They had a game the next day. You know, I mean, that's
Craig Monroe is grateful. He should be grateful. These are rare jobs. These are jobs that very few people can have. You got 30 teams. There's only 4 guys, the 2 on TV, 2. That's not many jobs in America. And to have one is very, very special. And we saw what happens when you potentially lose that job, what happened to Rod Allen, what happened to Mario Impemba. It's a career death. You may not get another chance. It's why I feel bad for Matt Shepard, who will not get another chance to do Major League Baseball and is kind of, had that chance to grab that ring and stay there and couldn't. And it's very, very, like I say, hard job to get, hard job to hold on to. And that's why most of them, this is one thing that bothers me about Monroe, and he's not alone. They are so desperate to continue to be liked by management that they just don't stop praising every pitch, every whatever. A guy can go 0 for 5, but he took good swings. It's always looking for this silver lining, even if it doesn't exist. And I'm old and I'm jaded and I hate hype, and it just drives me crazy.
You love hype. I thought you loved hype, Eli. By the way, what do you think of Jason Benetti?
I think he adds a lot of color. I think he tries to turn it into a yuck fest. He's very clever. He's really up on pop culture, and he
like Mike.
It kind of turns into a bit of a yuck fest.
That's why I like him.
And I like him too. But one of the problems with people who aren't funny is when they think they're funny. Oh, yeah. And so there's nothing where I got a friend who thinks he's
right
funny.
Here,
I just wish he wouldn't try to be, because you're kind of forced to go along with it. And I just think that
they hold you hostage, like Mark and I are held hostage.
Right.
Eli, you mentioned one of my big pet peeves, which is how announcers just never criticize the home team who is paying they're writing the check. I understand that. Can you think of any announcers, because you've been around for a while, that really were fair and tough?
Ernie Harwell. Ernie Harwell. You could listen to a game and not be sure which team he was broadcasting for. And what he did, and Benetti can do it better than most, is there's a lot of dead time in baseball, less than there used to be with the pitch clock. But in football, you can pretty much follow the action, let your color guy talk. In basketball, you can follow it, and same with hockey. But in baseball, you have to have some personality. You have to fill the gaps. You have to be a good storyteller. And that's what and although I love Matt, he's my neighbor. I think that's what cost him. It was too technical. He would talk to the players before the game, but didn't really relate the stories, couldn't fill those gaps. And Benetti is very, very good at that, maybe more so because he's off on a bunch of tangents, but at least he attempts to keep it interesting and upbeat. And I'm going to give him more time before I make any type of final assessment.
I imagine the hard thing with the broadcasters is with radio, you kind of take it on faith, but with TV, when you see a guy who looks like dog crap on the field and you have somebody saying, oh, he put a good effort in there, like, I watched the same thing you did. Your credibility has got to be paramount, because there's testimony happening right in front of you, something that's contradicting everything you're saying if you're just trying to be this hometown slobber.
especially if you start by telling the truth. Well, he really shouldn't have tagged up on that play, or it would have been then of course you have to top that by saying, but then again, look at all the other great things he's doing. So it's always you have to cover any minor criticism by, as you say, we're searching for maybe some unnecessary praise. But that's the nature. That's why if there's ever a game that's also nationally televised and not just locally, I will listen to the national announcers who will give me a more even-based perspective.
Well, a wise man recently wrote that all sports needs to have some second guessing and negativity.
Who said that?
Sure.
Was that a Free Press Sports columnist?
Yeah, that guy right there.
I thought the line was that second. I thought the line was that second guessing is a refuge for the disappointed.
That was your opening line in the column. Yeah.
So
second guessing is what makes us fans. Second guessing is what makes a fan say, that manager shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that.
Right?
So it's like you can intellectualize along and think that you're better. That's why fantasy sports. I'm a GM.
And I wrote refuge for the disappointed because as a fan, you are most days going to be disappointed, right?
It also gives you something to do
years.
in between the T-shirt toss and the helmet shuffle and all that other shit. I mean, talking baseball with the guy sitting next to you, the woman sitting next to you, Caitlin Clark, is a lot lot of fun. It's one of the things that makes sport.
We're all looking for commonality in our lives to belong to something.
I think all this leads us to this. Eli, here's the question. Who would be a better announcer, Caitlin Clark or Roger Moore?
Are we talking cricket or baseball?
Roger Moore.
To that point, I thoroughly enjoy. I have two friends, Michigan grads, best friends of mine. They were in my wedding. One guy is the most negative fan I've ever been around in my life with all sports, but particularly Michigan, just waiting for the other shoe to drop. This team's terrible. It's going to be bad. We're not going to win any games.
Police to arrive.
And the other guy, don't get me wrong, they're both Michigan fans. And the other guy is just positive. The team is never wrong. They never do anything wrong. And I love sitting between those two and being weighed by that because it's insane that they can both think that way about the team that they really, really love and the school they love.
How about there was somebody wrote a column maybe 10 years ago, or maybe it was a podcast, talking about the 6 levels of Lion fans. They're all passionate. One of them says, no matter what happened last year, we're going to be 14-2. We're going all the way. Another guy says we're going to be 2-14. Ford better sell the team. And there's just various, levels in between, but they're all passionate fans.
Well, those same two guys.
An opinion is what's beautiful about sports, and nobody really can be wrong.
My same two buddies were like that with the Lions too, because Chris just kept saying they haven't played anybody this year. I'm like, they're playing their NFL schedule, man.
Speaking of your Wolverines, should we be concerned about these DUI incidents?
No.
What is going on with this?
No.
This is just coincidence?
No party.
Sharon Moore.
Everybody drinks.
Sharon Moore has a handle on this program. Do we think that?
I think so. He's going to be a fine coach. But
Mike Hart's gone. Shoelaces is falling out of his shoes.
Well, they blew out the guy who came from Wisconsin. I mean, he was here for a week, got his DUI, and they blew him out. What are they going to do with Denard? I don't know. It's a little tougher. The guy is so beloved. So beloved.
This is his second DUI, right?
I believe
no, they pulled him out of a lake, didn't they? Or
something,
a retention pond or something.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he gets, if he needs help, he gets it. I just really, really like Denard. He's a really good dude. Just apparently bad judgment at night when the booze is flowing.
The only story in the Big Ten right now is Ohio State, which has, and I looked it up, they are now spending $20 million on their coaching staff next year. 11.4 for the assistants led by Chip Kelly at $2 million. With all the DCs and OCs and whatever else, one guy's getting 1.4, another guy. So, and Ryan Day gets 9.5. So they're spending $20 million on coaches. They got so much money after they lost to Michigan and then were humiliated by Missouri in the Cotton Bowl that they got so much money. They convinced 4 NFL-ready guys to stick around, including their best running back and their best receiver. And so that's how much money they got for that. Then they go into the transfer portal and buy a new quarterback and buy a new this and that. So they have invested probably $40 or $50 million.
They hired Chip Kelly, who was the head coach at UCLA.
And was not being forced out. He thought this was a promotion.
But think about that. I think he was making almost $6 million at UCLA. He's going to make about $2 million at Ohio State. I think I'd rather make the $2 million. I don't have to deal with all that bullshit, and I just get to coach the offense. This is great. I don't have to worry about getting fired every week.
Or you're thinking I may replace Ryan Day if we lose again. He may be in the wings. But so I heard you mention that figure on Drew and Mike the other day, the $20 million, Eli, and it got me thinking about Neil Rule when he was on this show a couple weeks ago, and he was saying the budget for the Oakland Golden Grizzlies basketball team, men's basketball team, is $2 million, and he said Kentucky's is $20 million. That's for the whole program. $20 million is just for the coaches at Ohio State. I mean, what is the budget for that? It's got to be $50, $100 million with the players and travel, and I mean, it's insane.
They take in close to $200 million a year. They get $80 million just from the Big Ten TV contract. And then, but it's all based on boosters and fans and collectives and they are one of the few schools. There's maybe 30 or 40 of them. I don't know how many that really make money on sports. Most don't.
The Super League that they're talking about, I see that coming.
You don't like it, do you?
I think I don't like any of this, and
no, you don't
that's
like
a whole nother
sports at all.
topic. So Shawn, I like college sports. I don't like college business, but I want to get to, because we've been going on for quite a bit about Caitlin Clark, but I want to get to this story.
We haven't talked about Caitlin Clark.
No, but the other thing we got to ask Eli. No, we haven't. That's right.
I know. Well, every 2 minutes, if we don't,
wait a second.
Why are you bringing it up? Why are you bringing up a topic you hate?
We got to ask Eli
let's talk about
Kwame
Kilpatrick, Sean's other favorite topic.
No, we need to talk. Before we let Eli go, and I know you're going to talk about the story back in the 70s. Right. We got to get his thoughts on OJ. And by the way, did your podcast really call the Hall of Fame to see if they lowered the flag?
Yeah, because the Pro Football Hall of Fame did put the flag at half-staff for that murderer, for OJ. I mean, I know he's in the Hall of Fame. He's got a bust, but yeah.
What if OJ died from leaving his glasses at a restaurant? Wouldn't that have been interesting?
What if he was murdered by a waiter?
I mean, I'm just saying. Just like,
I will admit, I'm very intrigued on Shawn Windsor's opinion of OJ Simpson as a whole. Like, I want your take on the juice, Shawn. Because you're a very positive person.
That's Mr. Simpson.
In 25 words or less.
Well, yes.
How about 25 minutes or less?
Okay, I'll restate it.
This guy only has enthusiasm when he's talking about Caitlin Clark.
I'll restate it. What's the first thing you think about with OJ?
Explaining to white people in the newsroom why black folks were reacting the way they did when the verdict came out. That's what I remember. I was in a newsroom in Alabama. And I remember trying to explain as best I could as a white guy, which wasn't very well, why they were seeing what they were seeing. And the idea
I don't understand. I still to this day don't understand it because
he
murdered two people. He was not a member of the black community other than...
No, he wasn't. You're right. He wasn't any of those things.
I'm OJ. Then
but through the course of the trial...
Wait a sec. Then after the acquittal, he goes down to a black church in L.A. and puts on the dashiki and plays that role, which I think is fucking ridiculous.
No, I don't want to say they because that speaks for everybody. A lot of black folks,
the ones that were celebrating,
knew all that, knew it was bullshit. But what they watched was a trial involving a police department that had a lot of bad history.
I get that.
That's not. I get that. That's it. That was it.
That's it, exactly. And that all Johnny Cochran, and by the way, Johnny Cochran, who got the double murderer off through his brilliance, became an incredible superstar after that. He appeared with everybody, with presidents, with late night talk show hosts. He was huge, and all he had to do was reveal. You're exactly what you said. He went after the police department. He got Mark Furman saying he never said the N-word, and then proving that he did say the N-word.
He did say, plus the idea that they were planting evidence. I mean, just that alone. Yeah. So what you had was a black member who had the means that a lot of wealthy white folks had traditionally had, even though he was not a black member, a black man, and used those resources in the same way the justice system had been used for the previous 200 years. That's what it was.
Then you know who should be celebrating? It should be rich people, because rich people won again, because rich people get off.
They already knew that, though.
He was a proxy. He was a proxy. That was it.
Yeah, but he's also a murderer. He murdered two people.
But the trial exposed some...
Civilly.
That's true.
In the civil case.
One of his great friends was Reg McKenzie, who Michigan 72, my year. Great guy. Love Reg. He was one of his chief blockers for the electric company when he set the record. Still can't accept the fact that OJ could have killed those two people because he only knew him as a wonderful, wonderful man. And I was telling on the Drew and Mike show also, I had 2 run-ins with OJ where I thought this guy is beyond belief an amazing human being. What a star, what a personality, what a smile. How could you be more cooperative? There was nothing not to like about the juice until we realized that he was really a sociopath, an absolute possessive lunatic, and killed 2 people.
I don't know if anybody here has a subscription to The Athletic.
I do.
But David Aldridge, longtime NBA reporter for TNT, wrote a great piece last week about OJ and what it was like and what it meant and why folks reacted the way they did.
Yeah.
I get the reaction, I guess, then, but to this day, people that still think he didn't do it just blows my mind.
Well, that's absurd.
What I thought was crazy is they tried to take away his Heisman, but they never took away his Oscar because his work as Nordberg in the
the Naked Gun.
The Naked Gun series was very layered.
Talk about a bad actor.
It really tapped into his knowledge of the criminal justice system. It was Stanislavski-esque, if I may say so. It was really transformative.
In a lot of ways, it's complex, but it's not necessarily complicated. The
Yeah,
trial
he murdered 2 people.
No, but the trial exposed a police force that was planning evidence and was racist.
And all he needed to do was create doubt. He created the element of doubt. That's all you got to do in a trial.
That's it.
Are you saying they planted evidence?
No, but that's what it looked like at the time.
But we already went through that in '91 with how bad the police department was with Rodney King.
Exactly. That had something to do
that
with
was all
it, too.
exposed. We had riots and everything.
He was a symbolic payback for years of abuse
Decades.
of the black community by law. Period. We don't need. Listen. Now, the reason you asked me, and I'm very glad you did. I love being on the show, but the reason you asked me to join was to talk about the Fritz Peterson, Mike Kekich.
That means Eli's got to go.
And I want to just reflect on that. Yes, it was 1973. I do remember that. The Yankees were in a terrible slump, and they had really some terrible years till they got Reggie Jackson's a free agent in 76. So the Yankees were kind of a laughing stock at that time. And actually, Peterson and Suzanne Kekich are still together. Or although Peterson just died, as it made it a national story, it kind of brought it to light. I don't think Kekich and Marilyn, who was Peterson's wife, ever lasted. But regardless, the one that was a bigger story happened 5 years later when the Cleveland Indians traded Dennis Eckersley to the Boston Red Sox because Rick Manning had made off with his wife, with Denise Eckersley, who was his wife. Manning got hurt in 77. He was a big strapping outfielder, as George Kelly used to say, for the Cleveland Indians, and was injured in 77. And he and Eckersley were good buddies, and so he rehabbed a lot. He rested a lot at Eckersley's house, and then took up with Eckersley's wife.
What? I never heard that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And so they traded that. The Indians had to make a decision here. Is it Manning or is it Eckersley? And they decided to keep Manning, and they traded Eckersley to the Red Sox. And Manning played another 4 or 5 years, but didn't have as outstanding a career. Eckersley married a few more times. But the fascinating thing to me always was, and I was mentioning this to ML this morning, was that, you think about the big home run, Gibby and Eckersley. And when that happened, and ever since I've thought, look at what had to happen to make those two guys meet in that particular moment that created this iconic memory that's one of the top 2 or 3 in baseball history. All the shit that had to happen, from Eckersley being traded from Cleveland, from then he's traded from the Red Sox to the Cubs. He becomes an alcoholic. He's out of baseball. He goes through rehab. He's resurrected. At the same time, Tony La Russa imagines that I can make Eckersley into a closer now, a role that never existed. He was the first closer. And all the things Gibby had to go through with Tom Monahan calling him a disgrace to the organization, and the collusion that made him leave Detroit as his beloved hometown. And these two guys wind up there. So that's what I think about, is the ramifications of these incidents that then create history later on. So you asked me this morning, and I'm looking at the New York Times today. And there's an article about something called a polycule. I'd never heard of a polycule.
Saw that article. Yeah.
Did you see that article?
I did,
I go,
yeah.
holy shit. I feel so boring. I mean, I'm a heterosexual man. I've been married to the same woman for 40 years. How utterly boring can that be? This thing that we used to think was the thing to do. Now, this polycule is about, and they talked about the people in Boston that have one. She says one of them, it's 20 people in their mid-20s to mid-40s. They're self-identified males who identify as hetero-flexible, new one to me, heterosexual, bisexual. There's a non-binary, I don't even understand non-binary, non-binary person. And there's a new one, every femme-presenting person or woman identifies. And so these people develop, I'm saying, what is going on in the world? So the Kekich, Peterson thing and the Eckersley thing, that's just basic, simple, old time shit. Nothing near what the world has happened since then.
Eli, my thought on the polycule was, it's tough enough having a relationship with one person. I couldn't imagine having a relationship with 19 other people. There's 20 people in it.
And I think it always turns out badly because you say, let's share and everything. And then there's jealousy. And
always.
It always ends up for shit. But
imagine if they try to do a podcast together. That's not going to last.
A polycule podcast.
I bring Shawn on to talk about whatever. We get Caitlin. I bring Eli to talk
really
about Kekich and Peterson. We got Polycule, Rick Manning, and Dennis Eckersley. My name is on the show. That's the only thing that I'm in control of is the name. It's just, this is chaos. It's anarchy.
Now, Shawn, you're old enough to remember that, aren't you? That was 1978. No, you don't
1978?
No, he only acts that old.
How old were you in 78?
I would have been
11.
13, 12,
Okay,
12,
right.
13, 12.
Maybe your mom didn't let you see that salacious stuff in the media. I don't know.
Even back then, he knew that Tarik Skubal wasn't going to amount to nothing. Didn't like the cut of his jib from the first time he saw him. Absolutely going nowhere, that Tarik.
Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Really happy to join you today.
Well,
feel free to call anytime.
Okay, tell us.
Eli, before you go, why don't you tell us about somebody who might be able to help our friend Javier Baez, if anybody can help him.
His eyes.
Well, maybe Dr. Yaldo could block the right side of his vision so he wouldn't be able to see that outside pitch and might not swing at it. But anyway, now you mentioned LASIK earlier. I'm going to tell you a different aspect of what Dr. Yaldo does.
He offers many services.
Nearly 4 million Americans, mostly senior citizens. No, they don't get polycules. Okay. They get cataract surgery every year. It removes the cloudy, blurry natural lenses, and now they see clear and colorful again. Now, that lens technology has become so advanced with bifocal lenses that younger people are opting for it. It's fast, it's simple, it's super safe technology. It gives them crystal clear near and far vision for the rest of their lives. Don't have to worry about reading glasses anymore for any of you over 45 and are struggling with seeing the small stuff. So get the best vision of your life. Find out what will work for you to give you, without glasses, contacts, or reading glasses, perfect vision near and far. Call the Yaldo Eye Center, 800-398-EYES, or set up a free evaluation at yaldoeyecenter.com.
Eli, which pot do you like better coming on?
Which what?
Mike or Drew?
I thought you said pot too.
You can tell Mark and I.
Eli's more of an edibles guy, but if you go see Dr.
Drew?
Yaldo.
Drew or Mike?
I'm not an edible. What? Well, Mike is not alive anymore, so I'm not sure what you're asking me. Which show I like being on more?
Yeah.
I like them both.
Oh.
Diplomatic.
That's a polycule answer if ever I heard one. He's not playing favorites at the Skank House.
I must say, I think I laugh more on this show, even though that one's funny. What do you think, Mark? Are there more yucks on this show or not?
Oh boy, there's a lot more chaos on this show. I'll tell you that much.
Well, yeah, the leader,
we're not
Elric, is a little more scattered.
Cut off penises.
He's a little more whatever. I'm out of here.
I don't have the gravitas of Drew. That's for sure. It's this is like a morning zoo, except all the animals are like sloths. Thanks, Eli.
Thank you, Eli.
Thanks, Eli. Always a pleasure.
So let me tell you about somebody else who can help you out. This is our friend Luke Nowacki. Maybe you're a big-time city official who can travel on the people's dime. I know a few of those. Maybe you're a political contributor who gets hooked up with government contracts. I know a few of those. Good for you. Bad for the rest of us. Now, if you're not among the swells lining your pockets with taxpayer money, if you're someone who actually works for a living, Call financial specialist Luke Nowacki at 248-663-4748. We'll discuss strategies to grow your assets, from annuities to individual retirement accounts to college savings. Make that call now. You've got kids and kleptocrats to feed. Luke Nowacki, 248-663-4748. Because, Mark?
He'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Because when you call Luke
He'll make it all
and Zach, they will make it all about you and your polyquad.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. member FINRA-SIPC.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent.
Mosaic Wealth.
Inc.
You know, I only wanted to talk about Fritz Peterson and Mike Kekich. I mean,
I know. God forbid.
But we did, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually. For the three people who are still here. Anyways, if you're still here and you like to play, maybe not with your teammate's wife. We're not going to condone that. But come play Detroit has every league you can think of, from kickball to volleyball to sand volleyball to softball to you name it. Maybe even mumbly peg. If you think about it, they'll add that. This is a great place to meet people. You can sign up as an individual, you can sign up with a small group, or you can bring an entire team. They're constantly starting new seasons, all kinds of things. Go to comeplaydetroit.com to find out more. You'll find me playing volleyball at Belle Isle all summer and all spring. You'll find me playing at Detroit City Fieldhouse in the Indoor Volleyball League all fall and all winter. It's a great place to meet people, have a good time, see some great places, have some fun, and compete. And if you want to save some dough,
play?
Women can play. With men, this is the Free Press. We were known as the Freep Stars when Carlos was our captain. There's been a bit of a coup.
How come he's not the captain anymore?
Well, after the first game, I realized he wasn't going to be a Cy Young candidate, so I had to step in and remove him.
You did the move
for the good of the team. For the good of the team. So we're now known as fake softball, but we play. It's co-ed recreational. They have competitive leagues too, but they got everything you can think of. Just go to comeplaydetroit.com. And here's another thing I can tell you. If you use promo code SOUL, SOUL, you will get a 10% discount on your individual registration. So come play Detroit. It's where I play. I'd love to see you out there in the Field of Valor. And maybe we'll have a beer afterwards.
Oh, man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek? Or we're turning into cool guys?
People are losing their mind over the Detroit sign on I-94.
Oh, God.
Mr. Magoo made a great version of it that you can see if you go to our website, ML Soul of Detroit, and we'll post that up there, and you can take a look at his fine handiwork. But Mike Duggan, Mr. Details, the man who is on top of everything, who does not miss a trick, is now blaming one of his top appointees for what he's clearly embarrassed by, which is a sign that many people feel is underwhelming. Now, here's the thing that I really find Duggan to be a little bit risible about. He says he's not yet driven by the sign.
Is that risible?
Risible.
Is it risible?
It is risible.
Okay.
Biopic. Anyway, Fort Worth is a suburb down. No? Huh? Okay. Anyway, so beans good for breakfast, lunch, dinner?
Tomato.
And hallucinogenics?
But tomato? No.
Anyway, Mr. Duggan, the mayor of Detroit, who likes to control everything, he's on top of stuff, says he's not seen the sign yet, but he was really excited when he saw what some joker online had created for a sign. Now, when you look at it, and if you're watching us online, Mark is putting it up there, the letters that would go up there are so huge.
Like 30 stories tall.
Yes, there's no way that this is really what the city was going to do. But some smart aleck
where would
put
that
it up
have
there.
been at anyway? Because you have the Rensen to the left. So I guess, what is that? Is that Jefferson Avenue?
It's as as you're going west, you don't really see that viewpoint because there's industrial stuff between there and the riverfront view. But it's this. It's just crazy. There's no way anybody thought this was real. And so now people are saying, well, the real sign, the actual sign is kind of underwhelming. And so Duggan is saying, Brad Dick, who is one of my top appointees, he put this sign up there and I thought, well, you know what? Why don't you go? He says, Brad, He's tremendously ambitious. And he said, I want to do something besides being the boring welcome to Detroit sign. We've all seen them. It's just the little thing on a piece of metal with green letters on white. And Duggan says, I didn't really focus on the sign until about a month ago. I saw a post on Instagram of a spectacular Hollywood sign. I called Brad and I said, that's terrific. I had no idea you were thinking that big.
Oh, so he bought it. He believed it.
He felt
interesting.
And anybody who saw it has got to say that. There's no way they're going to do that.
Of course not. It looks ridiculous.
Yeah. So, I mean, it looks awesome, but it's just not. I mean, there's got to be, that would be a feat of, it'd be bigger than the big tire. There's no way you could do that. So he says to Brad Dick, that's terrific. Good job. Way to think big. Yeah. So Brad tells him, according to the mayor, that's a fake post. Some guy on Instagram just made it up. And Duggan claims after the fact that he tells Mr. Dick, which maybe describes Duggan the way he's acting here, that the people are going to have a problem thinking that that's real. And he says that Brad Dick tells him, no, Mr. Mayor, you don't really understand social media. People don't confuse fake posts with real life. And now Duggan says, no, some guy from New Jersey says, I would fire the person who bought those letters because they don't look anything like what we ordered. And this fake post is circulating and blah, 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 blah. Folks, it's not that serious, okay? Now, frankly, I think the sign is crazy because the last thing we need is more distracted drivers going into downtown. And when I drove by it yesterday, traffic slowed a little bit, and that's a pinch point going into downtown, too. If you're going in there in the afternoon, traffic always clogs up there around 2 or 3 o'clock.
It's the first time people are going by it. They'll be fine.
I don't know. The other thing is there's a big chain link fence behind it. They're going to be people jumping that damn fence to have their picture taken by. You shouldn't put something like that on the side of a highway.
Listen to how excited he is.
That's a different problem.
Did you hear how excited he is? He had to share the show for the first hour, and now it's all him. So listen to that.
You know who agrees with me, Shawn? I think you do. Caitlin Clark.
Well, I agree with his reaction. I thought his reaction was a little ridiculous. Duggan's.
Yeah. So now here's what Duggan says. I guess Brad will learn about being ambitious and trying to do something special, but I applaud the ambition of doing something a cut above the boring side. And I think if he hadn't been judged against that extraordinary artist on Instagram, he'd have done just fine. So first of all,
a new one.
Sell him out, tear him down, then say, well, I guess if this knucklehead, I mean, you know what, Mr. Mayor, from one white mic to another, it ain't that serious, and nobody was fooled. So, I'm sorry. Maybe you didn't win the admiration of some procurement director in New Jersey. By the way, you know what else they call procurement directors in New Jersey? Defendants. So I wouldn't be too worried about what's going on in one of the most corrupt states in America.
What segment are we in? Is this room 7609 or no?
And that's why, as Shawn was asking,
the human break,
Your Honor, this week, great job with a lot of stuff, but this week, all you win is our Geek of the Week.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
We've invited you to send us your favorite deep tracks or your favorite obscure bands that have a great tune that you really love and you think we would enjoy too. We like to know about the band. We like to know about the track. We like to know about why you like it. So we don't just want you to suggest a song. We want you to suggest a story. And a lot of people have responded, and it's been very heartening to see how people have seized this opportunity. I was a little surprised to hear from this nomination this week. Juju Schuster and Angel Reese, but not Caitlin Clark, said they love the Suburbs and their new wave hit, Waiting. That's the Suburbs.
Not quite my tempo.
Really? You didn't like that beat?
Oh, I don't know. I was just thinking of our local Detroit legend, JK Simons.
Oh, yeah.
J.K.
Why?
Simmons?
Okay. Why?
Simmons.
Why were you thinking about that?
Because he was in a new wave.
Whiplash and his not quite my. I know the gesture.
So stupid.
The gesture is just awesome. Not quite my tempo. So I was just thinking about how to describe this song. That popped into my head because you were talking about the Tigers earlier, Mike, and he's a big Tigers guy.
Yes, and he really likes insurance as well, from what I understand.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's much better in his insurance commercials.
I mean, great spot. I can't even tell you what it was for.
Than Caitlin Clark. But the Suburbs were a big new wave band, kind of post-punk band in Minneapolis. Contemporaries of the Replacements, Husker Du, the other bands from Minneapolis. Anyway, the Waiting.
Prince.
Well, they were inspired by Prince, and I think they had a producer, somebody from Prince's band, maybe the drummer produced one of their albums, so there was some crossover there. But one of the most interesting things about the Suburbs is one of the lead singers' late wife. Does anybody know who she is? She's practically Minnesota royalty. No, okay. Eleanor Mondale.
Really?
Yeah, and she died, and he was her third husband. Her previous husband was, no, I'm not even going to wait. Nobody's going to. Keith Van Horn, who used to play for the Chicago Bears. And in between Keith Van Horn and the leader of the Suburbs, she was rumored to have had a tryst with
Billy Boy,
with Bill Clinton.
That I did know. Yeah,
well, he was president. So
she got around. She was hot.
I guess so. She was quite the media personality. So that's the Suburbs. Great band. Wasn't around for very long, but they were kind of legends in Minneapolis. Never really broke through nationally, but all very danceable stuff. You know, that great beat, the bass player, the fretless bass, that has a very distinct sound. And of course, as Shawn loves, the synthesizers, the keyboards. And his favorite part of that song is always
the bass,
the end.
You left out someone else she dated.
Oh.
Warren Zevon.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Did you mention that?
Let's put it this way. She dated a lot of fellers.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Including Washington Redskin offensive tackle George Stark.
She was a polycube, polyclot. Yeah, what the hell?
Exactly.
What the hell was that thing?
I already forgot it. Was it polycore? No, polycule.
I don't know.
Polycule, like a molecule, yeah.
Here's all I want.
Polycule.
Here's all I can tell you is if you want to know about immorality, that's Eli Zaret.
Right.
That's his whole thing.
Please.
They call him back at Channel 2 and Channel 4, they called him the hedonist. No, they didn't, but maybe they could have. Anyway, we want to thank all our donors. The best way to support this show is become a Patreon supporter of the show. For $5, you get to watch the show. You get the show before anybody else does. You can listen to it without the insertion ads, which I know can be very annoying at the beginning, the middle, of the end of the show. And you support the show. It helps keep us coming back every week. For $15, you get all of that. Plus, once a month, you get a special bonus episode that only our $15 a month subscribers get. And once you become a subscriber, you have access to our back catalog of bonus episodes, which include our most recent Erica Erickson dispensing advice that could change your life for the better. We have some other levels where I think it's at $25 a month. You will get some cool swag. At $15 a month, you'll also get a Kwame Sucha as soon as I get to the post office. But for $25 a month, you'll get a distinctive bit of gear. And for $60 a month, let me just say this, folks. Go to Patreon. We'll have a link to Patreon. It'll tell you exactly what you get for exactly what you give. And it all helps keep us coming back week after week. You're also welcome to just make a straight-up old-school donation by going to our website, mlsoulofdetroit.com, and pledging a one-time donation. Dennis sent us a very generous amount. He was listening very closely last week, although even people who were distracted heard Drew's dog Lila providing a music bed or cacophonous background, however you want to look at it. Dennis says, buy Lila some treats. She was a much-needed addition to the show with Windsor sitting on the sidelines. Come on, Cram! You need to get a beef going between ML and Shawn. It's always podcast gold.
Was I on the sidelines?
You were with
Yes.
Caitlin Clark, I think, rubbing her bunions.
Wonder what I was doing.
You're just sitting there.
We were talking.
Was I in the studio?
We were talking to Christoph. Yeah,
Was I in the studio? Yes.
Or did I zoom in?
You were sitting across from one of your editors, right? Wasn't she a news editor? I already forgot her name.
Oh, we had like 15 people here last week.
Yeah,
that's
it was a
right.
zoo. A good zoo.
Right. Yeah.
I like zoos.
Yeah, every now and again, it's like that was like a public service edition of this podcast. You got to do it every once in a while.
I like talking to Christoph. I was fascinated.
So you didn't find it interesting that we had a little person drummer who now plays a Sasquatch and likes to surf?
Well, no, he was a great guest. I'm just
jealous he stole your role.
Nothing compares to when Mike gets a little squirmy over there because he's losing control of the podcast.
Oh, that's my favorite.
I think that's the best material that we do.
I'm sure Kathy Kalashevsky will be happy to know
Love
that.
Kathy, but sorry, Kathy.
That this was a insignificant podcast.
I went.
No one would be in. It was almost a contractual obligation that we have to promote the Free Press Film Festival.
Kathy and I are good. I went and moderated the opening night panel at the DIA with the opening night film.
That was
Rouge,
the only reason not to go to the Free Press Film Festival.
which was a great movie, by the way.
What was the movie?
It was called Rouge, about River Rouge High School and the 14 state championships they've won, and just the city and how they integrated with the basketball team back in the 60s. And it was just beautifully shot, wonderfully told. It was great.
Did Tom Izzo
Kathy and I are
make it?
good. No, he did not. He was in the movie, but he did not. But George Blaha sat next to me, randomly enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was on the panel too, though.
You guys have the same haircut.
Well, he's got more hair than I do.
I
think I might have more
differently.
chins, though. I think I might have more chins.
Well, anyways, we apologize. On behalf of Shawn, I'd like to apologize for completely wasting your time last week by promoting a Free Press Film Festival that some people thought was
No. We could always say, hey, go to the film festival, and then get back to what we do.
Yeah, why would we help present an artist and allow them to share their innermost?
No, like I say,
try and bring about societal change that people will.
Great. I think it's great.
So people will view little people in a whole different context.
It's good that we pretend we're PBS once in a while, but it's more fun when you're over there squirming and people are saying, when are you and I going to have a beef again?
I just like that one of you is misogynist and the other doesn't like little people.
Yeah, Shawn only likes big people who can shoot 3-pointers.
I like all people.
Shawn tipped his hand.
I especially love our listeners.
You can't run the rock. You can.
I like all people.
It rhymes with something I don't want to say because my mom listens. So we appreciate getting your feedback.
What were you going to say, cunt?
Why do you think I would say that?
Because you're an Anglophile and they love that word over there.
What part of that rhymes with rock?
You were close. Try again, Shawn. You're so close.
Couple of letters off.
Yes.
No, I just was having fun with Mike. Hey, by the way, Mark, can you give us a quick review of Fallout? Have you started it?
Oh, no. I watched the first episode last night.
How is it?
Awesome.
It looks awesome.
It's really good. And I just finished.
Why is it? What looks so great about it? I never played the game.
The trailer. I didn't either.
Well, it's Wilton Goggins, of course.
Oh,
Walton Goggins.
Yeah. The trailer looked great. So
yeah, it's very, very good, and it looks like it's going to be pretty interesting. Lots of different points of views from the storytelling, and it's a post-apocalyptic America that somehow it starts in the 1950s, and somehow Walton Goggins is alive 200 years later as the Ghoul. So that's to be.
I know, but I'm a little burnt out on movies and shows that are made off of video games.
What did you? The Last of Us?
I thought Look,
I didn't see it. How was it?
I'm out on an island on this one, but I thought it was quite overrated. I think the acting's good in it, but the story to me is like, you know what's going to happen because these two are the video game characters. Everyone else is going to die.
Pedro Pascal
he's great in it, but
fabulous.
And then there was another one on Peacock.
Poker Face is a great show.
No, but that wasn't based on a video game.
I know
it's
it's
another
not,
one
but
based
I'm
on
just
a
saying.
video game, and I watched it. I'm like, this is just stupid. I'd rather play the video game. So
The Gentleman. Did you see The Gentleman?
I saw The Gentleman. I liked it. It was okay.
It was fun.
It was. I mean, it's Guy Ritchie. I like the way he does stuff, but thought it dragged a little bit at the end. But
have you ever seen the Christopher Walken version of Poker Face when he does the Lady Gaga song?
Yes,
that's pretty good. It's very
nice
good.
contribution.
So Fallout. So let's check Fallout out, Mark.
Fallout's
And you can
very
report
good.
back. You can report
I will
back.
check out.
I just started watching Sugar. If you like,
I like
if you
Sugar.
like
That
noir,
got mixed
it's
reviews.
modern noir episode. I'm up to episode 3, and it looks good.
Oh, good. I love Colin Farrell.
He's the main reason to watch it.
Well, and you would love it, Shawn,
he's really
because
good.
it's like every British detective show ever. He's misunderstood. He has a deep, dark secret.
Figures
he
everything
has
out.
people who don't trust him. He gets overwhelmed and committed to a case that everybody thinks is a lost cause. I mean, he's like every single frigging British cop,
Even
procedural,
Endeavor?
except he hasn't
Endeavor's
taken
one of my
a vow to
favorites.
serve the Lord. Endeavor's great.
It's
and
fabulous.
I love Fred Thursday.
Oh, Roger Allen. He reminds me of my father-in-law a little bit. Yeah.
So we have some feedback, folks. We want to get to this because there's some great stuff here.
Not really.
You haven't even seen it. Kyle says,
Dick, man.
Kyle says, I don't want to brag, but there's a man threatening to jump off the parking lot garage next to Cadillac Center in the News Center. I don't want to brag, but I work there. My coworkers are good people, while not to the liking of Windsor and Skidmark. What? Keep up the good work. I love the podcast and the fact you let Shawn Windsor work when he often speaks of beans, acid, and children using ketamine. Like the Methodist Church teaches us, love the sinner, hate the sin. So
How much did you add? How much did he ad lib in that?
that's all legit.
All right.
Here, I'm going to pass it over. Trust
pass
and
it.
verify. There you go. Just like pass over some beans. Dan, man, I'll tell you what. Dan says, so Dan Gilbert already got $1 billion in corporate welfare on the premise of creating new jobs at the perpetually delayed Hudson site, but now it's at best a zero-sum jobs-wise, as it's just going to be GM employees moving out of the Rensen. Spoiler, this is clearly PR spin for GM permanently slashing its day-to-day Detroit headcount. And of course, we all know oligarch Gilbert is teeing up another $1 billion+ in corporate welfare to convert the Rensen complex into affordable residential and a casino. When the truth is that White Elephant Energy hog structure should be demolished and redeveloped. The rackets in this town in Lansing never end, do they? I don't know anything about a casino. And the Renaissance Center is just so difficult to navigate, even after GM spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to make it sensible, created a beautiful winter garden that never really took off.
Opened up the back of it, right? Out
That's
onto
the winter
river.
garden.
Winter Garden, yeah.
But
What are they going to do with that place? There's no one there.
I mean,
Could they tear down the 4 buildings around it and just leave the center and then?
No, some of those towers are owned and they're actually occupied. The ancillary towers are actually common sense structures. They work where you can go up and go to an office and come down and you know where you're going. But yeah, just that central cylinder is foolishness. But here's what Dan is kind of alluding to, and this is one of the concerns that we've talked a lot about at the Free Press, the guys who cover Gilbert and development and the women who are involved in these stories, just as good as the men. They're the Caton Clarks of the Detroit Free Press. They could play in the NBA if we were a men's basketball league. That's how good they are. Same size ball, even a bigger ball.
Okay,
They could shoot a
all right,
medicine
get
ball.
over it.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, this is the thing. Gilbert, with his tax breaks, he gets a cut of the income tax that occupants in these buildings get.
Yep.
So now this is actually a net loss for us because you have people in the Renaissance Center where the city and the state are getting 100% of the taxes they pay, and now they're going to get less than 100% because they're moving into Gilbert's building where he gets a piece of that. And this is one of the big concerns that people have had, and nobody in the city has addressed it. The mayor, the city council, nobody's addressed it. Maybe they haven't thought of it. If they haven't thought of it, shame on them. But these are not new jobs. Now, there will be new jobs because GM is not going to fill the Hudson site or the hotel or the other stuff. But this very much is what a lot of people who were critical of these deals were very, very afraid of.
We talked about it on this show.
It's a legitimate
almost
concern,
predicted.
and it's a real shame, and it's something I might write about. And if I do, you can count on me calling Dan Gilbert in the city to say, is there anything you're going to do to make up for this, or is there something in the agreement that we didn't report or we missed that says these will only be certifiably new jobs. Now, I don't know how you prove that because people turn over. And even if you were, let's say you're just the head of security at the Renaissance Center for GM and you move over to the Hudson site and then they say, well, this guy's worked here for a long time. You're not going to get any of his taxes. And then he leaves and is replaced by somebody. That's going to be a new hire. And then you're going to take some of it. It just...
Has the city commented? Has there been any comment about GM moving it because of that fact of the loss of tax revenue? Because there was the glitzy press conference that Mary Barra and Gilbert had.
Yeah, I think the only thing Duggan's going to acknowledge being fooled about is a sign on I-94 that he shouldn't have been fooled about.
Well, no, I don't expect him. Believe me, I would never expect that guy to admit that he was fooled. But you got to believe he's fucking pissed about it. Well, or do you think he doesn't care because,
To Duggan's credit, when they screwed up some of that demolition program, he said, hey, this is on me. This is my fault. So he's willing to take the blame.
Duped. I feel like we're all duped by this Hudson's building. No, he wasn't duped. He probably knew.
Well, yeah. So here's the deal. You can't be as smart as Duggan is and not see this coming. Yeah. Now, City Council, on the other hand... they're like, ribbon cutting? I get one of them helmets and one of them silver shovels. I'll be there. Is it going to be catered? Who didn't see this coming? Yeah. And who didn't say, so again.
Well, I didn't expect GM to go there. I expected it to be from other places around the city.
Oh, no, we've been hearing rumors that GM was going to move out of the Renaissance
The bigger question
Center,
is what'll happen to the Renaissance? Can that be salvaged? Can some folks
pushing in the river
do something with it?
The thing about the Renaissance Center is if you make it strictly residential, I think it could work just because, you know your own neighborhood, the quirks, right? Like if you're a visitor and you're like, well, where do I get to the food court? Or where do I go to here? Where do I go to there? You can't find it and you just say, I'm never going to come back. But if you live there, you're like, oh yeah, that's when you take a left there and you take a right there and you take the third elevator and then you get off on number 2 and you'll be right there. And people say, what? But I think it's manageable as a residence. And I think the hotel has always been fine. It's just trying to get to the shops and all the different stuff. I mean,
I saw a quote that they want to try to figure out ways to make it more user-friendly, I guess. That'd be great if they could do that. Then you got the Hudson building that's up, and I don't know, all the other buildings he's done. He's done a hell of a lot more than Illich has built an arena and
GM
else around
has benefited from a lot of these sweetheart deals.
Oh, of course he has. So is the city. Every time I drive down and up Woodward, or I was down Cass the other day driving up, it's like it's not all, but a lot of it is because of that. There are consequences to it. But otherwise, I mean, I remember when I would go downtown every day in 2000. This place looks a whole lot different.
Gilbert has taken less in incentives or has asked for less or asked less often than the Illiches have. I don't think that's...
And he's followed through on most of the stuff that's gotten built, at least, right? It's not...
Yeah,
for the most part,
I mean, he's got some projects that
Hudson's
are...
Building was
the failed jail
5
site.
years ago. Oh, the jail.
The jail site's a
that's
disaster.
one. No, that's one.
Where's our soccer stadium?
No, I was just going to say the whole pie-in-the-sky soccer stadium was all whatever, but...
To GM's credit, they did try and open the Renaissance site up to the city by taking those berms down in front of it where they had all the mechanicals. But really, we have a gorgeous riverfront. And if you really want to open the city to the riverfront, you have to take the Renaissance Center down. I just think the amount of money you would spend to make it functional, it's cheaper to tear it down and rebuild and build something that's not so monolithic, something that's more open to the water, something that you can kind of pass through. But
like shorter stuff too.
Something that'll be used.
Yeah, I mean, come on. So anyway, David,
like at the Joe Louis, by the way, Mike. Do you like what they're working on over there?
Oh, that glass tower over there.
And they've kind of opened that up, that whole area.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, if
condos.
If you go to some of the great cities that are on the water, Chicago, Toronto, it's all glass high rises all along there. I mean,
people live on there.
Yeah. Now those kind of create a glass curtain between the city and the water, so I don't like that. But if you sprinkle them like that, what I'd really like to see people do is rehab some of those classic apartment blocks that we have on the east side of the river, like the Whittier and 1300.
Up where the rattlesnake is, there used to be, and all that.
Right, yeah, and some of them are occupied. Like Alden Towers and I mean, but there's some potential there, and you could space them out enough that you wouldn't basically impede people from enjoying the water. And but anyway, Dan, great points, and we're going to be asking some more questions about that. David says, as someone who has been in the media for some time, oh, you've been in the media for some time, David? Oh, I guess he means us. I am very curious to hear about your and everyone's take on people who consistently whine about the media just being a bunch of narratives. The media is far from perfect, but are these people just the type that are looking for something to be angry about? For instance, when someone shares a story conveying some positivity around women's sports, they can't help but develop some cynical, chauvinistic opinion just so they can take them down a peg. Really what I'm asking is, in this example, does this person have a legit beef with the media regarding narratives, or is the explanation as simple as they just have no respect for women? I'll hang up and listen. I think I know who David is referring to. I think this is
Clay Travis,
a shot at somebody on another show, perhaps on this network. Does that sound right, Mark?
Who? What? No, what?
Oh, this sounds like a shot at Drew, but maybe it's not.
Because of the way women's basketball has been pushed?
He is overwhelmingly uninterested and dismissive of women's professional sports. I mean, he drives him nuts.
Well, no, see, it's funny because he watched the games. He admits that Caitlin Clark is amazing, but like me, there's, and I think Eli kind of said this too. There just seems to be this, and it's not fair to her, just this comparison to everything and always men's sports. And there was a whole panel on ESPN talking about Angel Reese and how she was attacked and how it's tough to be a woman. It's like, one of the things that might help women's sports is if you just talk about the fucking game. And until we get to that point, but I understand what this guy's saying. A lot of times there's a lot of complaining about the media because the media might get one thing wrong and then therefore it's extrapolated to they get everything wrong, which that kind of drives me up a wall.
I guess I'm going to translate this, and David, I apologize if I'm getting this wrong, that a bunch of narratives, that sounds to me like what we used to call trends, where everybody starts talking about one thing and then it's all you ever talk about, and I just think people in general are prone to that. There's stuff that's hot, but yeah.
There's no doubt ABC and ESPN really pushed it, but that's because the product is on their network, right? Wasn't it on ABC? Or no, what? Wait, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was on ESPN, the Women's Championship. Yeah. So they've always pushed the. Come on, it's a little old now.
When you say push,
hockey.
That's not fair. You don't say that with men's basketball. They advertise men's basketball. They promo men's basketball because they carry men's basketball. They do the same with women. They're not pushing it. It's not they're not trying to shove it down folks' throats. They're just advertising what they have. They're selling what they have.
That's what I was saying. But this kind of goes back to the early part of the show. Before ESPN got hockey back, they never covered hockey because it wasn't on there. So, when you see SportsCenter's kind of a moot point now because nobody really watches it for highlights anymore. But you would never see hockey until they got it back, 4 years ago?
Yeah, maybe? Because it wasn't very popular.
I understand that, but if you're a sports news show, you think you would cover all sports,
right? By
the hierarchy of the agenda of what you're covering is going to be on what your audience wants, and it wasn't that way for a long time. I think that's a narrative that's a little played out now because they have hockey back and because more people are watching women's college basketball. But to push the WNBA. Nah, I'm not buying it because that's on their network.
The numbers have been up, actually. They're really, really small overall, obviously, but they've actually been trending up for the last couple of years. I'm not sure why, but...
Well, I think you do build an audience for the product you have to sell, right?
You do.
We're not sitting here promoting that you go watch
you do that with promos.
Ellen Longstreet and Derek Kever over at Fox 2 because we don't do televised weather. So the Free Press talks about watchdog reporting and insightful columns and prognostications about Cy Youngs and stuff like that. That's what we have to offer. So you kind of peddle what you got on the shelves. But I don't know. I do think that there is a tendency, and I don't know if it's particular individuals where you just like they're all the same, and if one of them's bad, they're all bad, and that's just ignorance.
What I don't understand, and I'll use the women's basketball thing. again, is you see people in the media celebrating it like a victory that it did better TV ratings than the men's. And on the flip side, when it goes down next year or when WNBA ratings come in and there's just minuscule, you see people celebrating that almost like a culture war. And frankly, I don't give a shit.
There is a part of a culture war.
I don't give a shit who gets higher ratings. I think it's fascinating that the women beat the men. And I think it's really because of Caitlin Clark.
I understand the celebration a little bit, though, because it's just...
Why?
Because it shows a lot of growth. Women didn't even have high school sports not that long ago, right? If you don't have to go that far back, let alone college sports. I mean, Title IX changed a lot. But it's been a slow progression. And for women, of course they're going to celebrate. Why wouldn't they?
No, I'm not talking about... I'm talking about, like, Good Morning America celebrating it. Or, I mean, there's different columnists that celebrate because they beat the men. It's like, okay.
Yeah, because...
How about the fact that it was just, you had a once-in-a-lifetime generation?
Well, maybe so, but I don't... Why wouldn't they celebrate? It's a sign that...
Because you're supposed to be covering the sport.
As a column, no, you're supposed to have an opinion. You're talking about opinion sections. You're not talking about hard news, folks, right?
Yeah, I think it's weird when you see Good Morning America or CBS Morning celebrating it. As if they won something from it. It's like, you know what? Just say, yeah, look at this great rating, and this is the game.
But that would be fine if we'd always had women's sports and they were roughly watching the same clip that men's were. But that's ignoring how the culture's been for all this time, right? So it's changing.
But is it possible that it's just not as good of a product too?
No, they're changing. No, but it depends on what you like. You've watched tennis, right? Serena Williams
heard me
was
say
often...
that women's tennis. I find women's tennis more entertaining than men's tennis.
Oh, for sure.
I watch women's volleyball, that's for sure.
No.
Yeah.
Well, not why you do, but women's volleyball is awesome. No, track and field in the Olympics. I'm sure you loved watching.
But the hierarchy of what I'm going to watch, women's college basketball and the WNBA is even further down on that list of what I would choose to watch, depending on what's on.
Well, the WNBA is one thing, but the NBA itself has lost some popularity. But it's just a sign that there's change out there, and it's not bad change. And for people to celebrate that, fine. The people that are pushing back on that don't want change, to me, by and large.
See what you started, David. Well, we probably should get out of here. I just got a text from a number I don't recognize. It says, "Honey, I'm done doing yoga. How about getting a cup of coffee?" I'm sure that's not a catfisher. And I don't get offers like this very often.
Text like that.
Do you drink coffee if you do yoga?
From some 332. So somebody who's going to have to go to the bathroom wants to do. No, I got it backwards. They're doing yoga now. They're going to go to the bathroom. I don't know. I don't know who this number is, but
no, that's a common scam. Recently, I just saw a big story on that. Yeah, where it's
really. I thought it was one of our Patreon subscribers who said, that's a handsome fella. I think
there's a name for it, and it starts with an accidental text message, and you're supposed to strike up a conversation with this person. And eventually they're going to tell you how they invested in cryptocurrency and made a lot of money, and you should do it too. Why don't you just send me some money? I'll help you get started.
Wow. I'm glad I don't drink coffee, but I do have to get back to the Free Press. Big column coming up this weekend. I think it's going to get a lot of people talking. It involves an unsolved murder.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something that involves something huge.
Interesting.
Get back to the opening theme of the show.
What are you working on?
I don't know. We got the draft coming up. Brad Holmes is talking this week. The Pistons are doing whatever they're doing, so we need to opine about all that. Yeah, there's lots of stuff.
Have you guys done any draft projections?
Oh, no.
Or are you just sticking to Cy Young winner projections?
Just Cy Young winner projections, yeah.
I guess we're not going to do very well there either.
I'm going to make another prediction. Is Cyrus around the corner?
Let me see.
You in a hurry?
Cyrus?
No, Mike said he needed to get out. He's getting phone calls from yoga studios.
Not yoga studios, just one particular yoga practitioner who needs some caffeine. Anyway, we appreciate you listening to us. Please sign up and support us on Patreon. We do not have any new members of the Soul Patrol this week, which brings a small tear to my eye. Dennis did give us a little support financially, which we really appreciate. Please go see Dr. Yaldo. Tell him ML sent you. Talk to Luke and Zach. Let them know ML sent you. And come play Detroit. If you use promo code SOUL, you don't need to say ML sent you, but you'll save some dough. So until next week, Cyrus, take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
From the hills of Sicily to the streets of San Francisco. They're turning things upside down.
Are you crazy?
And inside out. They get into some tight spots. They have some close shaves. And a few bad scrapes. But they always come through with flying colors. And they never lose their sense of humor.
The fat one is Max Murder, and his main interests are loan sharking, extortion, and an occasional murder.
No, don't you. The most lovable bad guys in the business.
The soul of Detroit.